Namaste and welcome everyone to today's podcast. In today's podcast, we're going to focus our conversation on the role of health in spiritual evolution. In my first book, Sun, Moon, and Earth, The Sacred Relationship of Yoga and Ayurveda, I started the book by asking the question, what is health? Because health today is at the forefront of everyone's lives. Our world, our modern societies have turned away from health, and we've lost the value of life. The most important value of life is health. The body, the gift of life that we've been given to enjoy this world, but even more so and more importantly is living a life that is purposeful, living a life that is meaningful. And health plays an important role in that. Health helps us to explore, to connect, to feel the sensory world. The body itself is the vehicle that we use to travel, to digest ideas, experiences, and our relationships with others, our experience through affection, through community. So health is an enormous topic. It's an important topic. But I want to explore health relative to the yoga and Ayurveda traditions. And again, I don't want anyone to confuse yoga with a fitness system, with the physical system of yoga. Yoga is much more than that. Yoga is based on 4 primary paths: the path of devotion, the path of being active or practical, the path of study and education, and the path of meditation. And Ayurveda, as the medical system and the sister science to yoga, is focused on mainly tridosha, these 3 primary elements: air, fire, and water. So while yoga aims to improve our health in a holistic way, in the integral expansion of the human being, or the integral evolution of the human being, in those 4 aspects, Ayurveda aims to balance the 3 primary aspects of our wellness, of our well-being, of the systemic body, if you will, as referred to in allopathic medicine, a body of systems. Endocrine system controls the hormones. Respiratory or circulatory system involves oxygenation of the body and circulation of blood, which carries the oxygen digestive system is the primary system of Ayurveda, in which we digest, metabolize, assimilate, and eliminate food. And, of course, the skeletal system, the nervous system, which are both very closely intertwined, and the immune system, which is based on strength of the body, resilience of the body, but more importantly, immunity depends much on the mind-body relationship. So the body is not separate of the mind in health. Although Western medicine defines health mostly on a physical level. So when we're asked, how is your health? How is what are your fitness levels? It's always measured on the level of the body. But in ancient Eastern medicines, specifically Ayurveda, health is more focused on our mental attitude, our mental well-being. So keep in mind why that's important, because the mind is reflecting onto the body. The body is a mirror of the mind. The systems of the body are mirroring the quality of our mental attitude. In yoga and Ayurveda, we refer to these as gunas, the three attributes. Low quality, very limited in our capacity to exercise will, to be disciplined, to do the right thing for our health, is defined by tamas guna. And this is the type of mind that's very doubtful and doesn't have a good discipline and good exercise or access, does not know how to access one's self-will. Rajas is the active mind, the externalized mind, the person who is making an effort, but tends to be a bit agitated, tends to overdo things, can. And then there is the sattvic mind, which is the most elevated mental attitude, which embraces moderation, applies the right amount of exercise for the body without wearing or wasting the vital energy of the body. And the mental attitude has an aversion to the world, is somewhat detached from the world, carries a sort of witnessing capacity to the people, the places, and the things that surround us. So again, the body and the mind in Ayurveda are not separate of each other. They are intrinsically one. They only differ in their vibration. What separates the mind from the body are basically sheaths, sort of layers of consciousness. And it is precisely here where Western or allopathic medicine stops. Does not recognize a subtle body. Even though, interesting enough, science or Western medicine or psychotherapy, psychology, recognizes the dream state or the dreaming mind or the subconscious mind, it does not recognize a subtler body of consciousness that we call the mind. So this is important to understand. The body is biological. It is gross. It has 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And if you look at the body's systemic functions, those elements basically reflect how the body is laid out, how the organs are positioned within the spine, with relationship to the spine, within the chest and the structure of the torso. And with earth at the bottom, we eliminate. That's where we release waste from the body. And at the top, we have air and ether, where the lungs are, where we breathe and speak. And in the middle is fire, where we metabolize. So the 5 elements define how the body is set up. And so what Ayurveda does, and it takes those 5 elements, simplifies them, and reduces them to the 3 aspects, right? Body, mind, soul. So we have the doshas, these 3 primary elements of vata, which governs the mind, the nervous system. And vata is basically the balance of the air element. It represents, the term vata is a later term. The original term is vayu. And it basically measures or defines how we are able to pranify the body and how we're able to manage prana on the level of the mind. So prana goes, life force energy goes, where the mind goes. And this, in traditional or classical yogic practices, was an important exercise of concentrating the mind on various parts of the body, tensing that area, sending blood, directed will energy, borrowed energy from consciousness. We will it through our mental power and focus to a specific area, and it energizes that area. It pranifies it and improves circulation. Where there is circulation, there is health. Where there is stagnation, there is death. Stagnation of any energy, of any function of the body, creates disease. And that's why being idle doesn't work. Being sedentary doesn't work. We're meant to use these bodies. We're meant to allow things to flow on the mental level. Things must change. We have to embrace change. When we embrace change, and that all things in the world of time and space are never consistent. They're always evolving, they're always changing. And so that is a type of circulatory attitude. It is a framework that helps our mind to become more adaptable. And that circulatory emphasis of flowing and allowing things to flow is very vital and important in Ayurveda. And this is why Ayurveda begins with health by understanding digestion, Agni, the metabolism, and our capacity to intake food, which carries prana. Water, air, and food carry prana, life force energy. Keep in mind, while science And modern medicine looks at food and defines food by its capacity to hold vitamins and minerals. Ayurveda and Eastern ancient wisdom defines food by its capacity to hold prana. And prana is directly linked to consciousness. So often, my mother says to me, well, just put it in the freezer, put it in a Ziploc, and you can freeze it and save it. I say, but Mother, I'm not interested in simply preserving the vitamin and the mineral in the food. The freezer cannot preserve prana. That's the difference. In prana, there is consciousness. When you look at a plant, and it has color, it has vibration, it has an attraction, something that is symbiotic to us, something that is similar to us. And that connection that we have to those plants, to the trees, to all living organisms, is the consciousness that is in them, that sustains them. And they depend on sunlight, water, air, right? Water, again, kapha dosha. Sunlight or fire, pitta dosha. Air, vata dosha. Again, there are the three doshas. They are in nature. They are in us. So plants have consciousness. They vibrate in different ways. They absorb and work with these elements in different ways. So when we pull a plant, a piece of kale or a carrot, whatever vegetable or sacred plant we pull from the earth, it has prana in it, and it carries that prana for a period of time. If you just pull it out, set it down on a plate or a cutting board, it's okay for a day, right? You can still cut it up, cook it, and eat it. Tastes good. It has the right consistency. Second day, it changes. By the third day, it is very different. Now, why is that important? Why do we use that measure of the day? Because the day cycle represents one 24-hour period, sun rising for 12 hours, sun setting for 12 hours. So that movement of the sun within that cycle, that 24-hour period, we define as a day. But that sun's movement influences the life force, the light, the consciousness that is in a plant or a food. And each day is representative and symbolic of the body, and the 3 days represent the 3 bodies. So one day is like the physical body, so that food has some deterioration. It's not visible. The prana is still in it. Then the second day, there's more of the prana that dissipates from that. That represents the subtler body. And the third day, by the third day, there is substantial change. This is why I often recommend to my clients in counseling to buy foods that are fresh, that are organic, that are not frozen, that are not boxed. And yes, you can keep them in a refrigerator, but foods should not be kept for more than 3 days, and they should be eaten within 3 days so that you get the vital prana from those foods, the life force. And this is important because food, as it carries consciousness, also helps us to expand our own consciousness. It's a relationship. What we eat influences how we feel and how we think. They're both connected. It is not just measured on the level of the body. What we eat, again, defines how we feel. You've heard the expression, you are what you eat. Correct. And what you eat influences how you think. So our foods and the quality of the food that we intake play a big role in the mind-body relationship, in our capacity to maintain immunity, resilience to viruses, to fluctuations in temperature, to seasonal changes, to the cycles of life as the body ages. So this resilience comes through the blood. The blood carries cells, it carries oxygen, hemoglobin, and it is food, good oxygen and good water, that help give us that strong blood. In science, the body and the brain are what define life. So we see this today with a lot of interest in the brain, especially with academians and universities, because it's tangible to them. It's an organ. They can measure it. They can connect it to various devices. They can do scans of the brain and get different readings depending on what the brain is doing or what the person is doing. And so the brain in science has become the new God. It's what they worship in a way, because science has realized that our brain influences our body. But the difference with yoga and Ayurveda is that the brain is merely an organ. It is just an instrument. It is just a tool. It is not the tool that is important, but it is the mind and how it uses that tool and how it can use that tool to one's benefit, to one's evolution. Yes, the brain is changeable. It is programmable. This is why the yogis have endorsed and taught the importance of mantra, the reciting of various words. Apply that as positive affirmations. If you say positive things, eventually positive things manifest. And the brain responds to that. So our environment influences the brain, and our environment conditions the mind. And so health cannot be defined separate of the mind. Our health and well-being must always include the body and mind. So as consciousness begins to expand through positive environment, positive connections, relationships, reading insightful and spiritual and dynamic books, and most importantly, health in spiritual evolution involves the calming of the mind, the slowing of the mind. And I love what Einstein says. I didn't arrive at my understanding of the fundamental laws of the universe through my rational mind. He said, I think 99 times and I find nothing. I stop thinking, I swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. So powerful are those words from one of the greatest scientists in human history. I think 99 times and I find nothing. I stop thinking. I swim in silence, and the truth comes to me. There are no outer resolutions. There are no resolutions in changing someone or trying to change an outer circumstance. We change ourselves, and naturally our environment changes. We take personal responsibility and we reflect on the environment that we have and that we've created in the circumstances, because they're presenting opportunities for us to listen. Karma yoga. Practical evolution. Listening. What is that circumstance? What is my child telling me? So, as consciousness expands, things fall away. As our capacity to slow the mind and reflect, we realize that there is a substantial difference between a desire and a need. And this is an important principle to explore, because yoga and Ayurveda define a desire as a condition of the mind. It is superficial, it isn't real. It is like a programming of your brain computer. And it is referred to as manas, the outer aspect of the mind that operates through the senses. Seeing, touching, smelling, hearing, right? Feeling this outer world. And that aspect of the mind influences a portion of the brain, more specifically connected to the reptilian brain, and also to the midbrain, and this area referred to as the amygdala in the brain. It's emotional. It's sensory. It's controlled by the famous ego, the false self. So many people get confused with this term. It's often used in metaphysics or the spiritual traditions as the self, the individual self. So one is the self as the ego, which is not who we are. It is the person who has been conditioned. But then there is the capital S self, which is the true essence of our existence. We're not a body. We're not a mind. And we have to stop identifying with male, female, banker or plumber, baker or poet. It's not what we do, but how we do it. What is the flow of consciousness? What is the quality or the relationship that we have to pure consciousness that defines the mind, our health in the body? So we have to differentiate between a desire, again, which is conditioned based on habit patterns, ancestral patterning and exposure, cultural, religious, on and on, belief systems and structures, and a need. A need is very different. And this is where needs become vital. They become a link that bridges the mind-body relationship. A need is something that we require to maintain homeostasis in the body. When you feel hungry, and again, let me repeat that. When you feel hungry, you don't think hungry. First, you feel hungry. It's something that you're feeling, and I'm not talking about sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, right? I'm not talking about a sensory feel. When you feel hungry, it is an intuit, it is a subtlety, an energy that is sent to your brain in conscious awareness. You can respond to it or you can ignore it. The one who ignores it because their mind is distracted, because they are multitasking, because they are living in the modern age of technology and fast-paced, faster is better world. That's Vata. That's the windy mind. This is the primary cause of disease. And Ayurveda and yoga place much emphasis on primarily balancing Vata, the mind, presence of mind, calming the mind, to enhance our capacity to feel and to listen. So, needs are important. They are real. And hunger is about feeding the body, that life force, food which is sacred. Where does it come from? It comes from nature. Nature is divine. It is our new religion. It is not merely something we're trying to save. Nature is alive. Nature is fertile. It is the womb of the mother. We all are born here, living in the womb of the mother. We have to respect that. And we must nurture and embrace the bond that we have between moon and mother, just as the earth and the moon share with each other. They're the two closest planets, and not by coincidence. Moon is the mother, earth is the body. And so it is the same. Moon is your mind. Moon is the quality of your consciousness, your capacity to manage the outer mind and expand the higher mind, the feeling, the intuiting mind. And earth is your body. So consciousness plays a vital role in our health. And just because your body has a problem with it doesn't mean that you cannot evolve. There is no perfect health. The mere fact that you're born into a body means that you have variations, that these forces are variable, they're changing. And we must work with them and grow to overcome whatever challenges we've been given in our health. The body becomes a great test for the mind. It makes the mind more resilient. If we're born at a young age with some disruption or some disturbance in our body, in our health, and we see this sadly, and I see this often, with no correlation to the genetic patterning of the parents. The child is born with an independent and unique and distinct disorder. Where does that come from? Rebirth. Law of karma. How we end our life is more important than how we begin it. Because how we end our life determines how we begin the next life. Some are born so interested in taking care of their health, while others are interested in other things. Some are born with interest in eating well, and others are not. So there is no perfect health, and your body is like a tool. And how you use that tool can help you to develop discipline, strength of will, and to grow in your evolution. Now, whether or not you develop perfect health or a balance of the doshas doesn't mean that your effort is not valuable or you're not given credit for it. Whatever effort we make, regardless of the health circumstances or challenges that each of us have, that goes stored in our evolutionary bank account. So don't define your evolution based on the quality of health of the body. Don't define your evolution based on just the body. Look at the mind, look at the quality of your consciousness, and look at the relationship it has with the body. Use the body, take care of it, and then drop it. Just as you do every day. You go about your tasks, you perform your responsibilities, you go to work, and at night you drop it in sleep. You forget it. And then we do that again and again, and we repeat that. The sleep cycle and the day cycle mirror, in a way, rebirth. We drop a body, we go into a sleep, unaware of any association with a body, with a name, a form, and then we come back again. This is my family, this is my name, this is my new purpose. I want to be in gardening, I want to be in real estate, I want to be in cooking. Doesn't matter. What matters most is that we make a daily effort, that we strive each day to go beyond matter. What we refer to as matter is essentially energy. Our bodies are filled with energy. That energy is spirit. It is consciousness. We must transcend the limitations of the body, of the mind, of health, because we may never achieve an ideal state of health in our whole lifetime. And many of us can see that, where we spend months and years and decades even working with a certain issue of the body or even the mind. A habit pattern that is so difficult to overcome. The importance lies in that resilience of the mind to never give up, to be persistent and consistent in our efforts, and to strive for the goal. Freedom beyond name and form, male or female, doctor or gardener, whatever you want to be. Don't let any of these things limit us. The time on the clock, all of these things must be overcome so that we can attain health. What is health? Health is evolution. Health is the effort that we are making to grow in our relationship and respect for all living things. Health is also a balance between the mind and body relationship. Health also comes through moderation, balance between the outer world, our outer responsibilities in our families, our work, our careers, and our inner world, our relationship with non-duality. There is one. It's in us. Our connection to that oneness brings us evolution. And we do this by also embracing the importance to our life, to our world, to the responsibilities that we have to take care of ourselves, to feed our children, to help our society and our friends. So there is this inner-outer dynamic that is at play here. And so health is not just merely a perfectly shaped body that weighs or looks a certain way. We have to abolish that. It's so sad that our media has conditioned so many minds, particularly the minds of so many women, to feel less, to feel judged if they're not thin, if they don't look a certain way. And it has created many disorders, psychological, physiological, that can take much, much time to work through. Diet should be simple. Lifestyle should be natural. Time in nature, walking, slowing the mind, and growing in our relationship with all living things. As we move through this process, each year and through various cycles in our life, remember everything, our life is just filled with many cycles. Our consciousness grows and expands naturally. Things fall away. Our desire for certain foods falls away. As that consciousness becomes more elevated, more connected to nature, we realize we don't need something that disturbs our awareness. We don't need to drink something that takes us away from our natural state of being. We don't need to eat things or foods that make us feel heavy, that produce or increase our craving for things that are not real. As consciousness expands, our health increases, and silence becomes more predominant in our life. Silence brings peace. May we all stop swimming in silence. How many times, countless, do we think and think and think and think? What is thinking? Thoughts and thoughts and thoughts. But when we stop those thoughts, we're bathing in an ocean of silence. Suddenly that wave, that ripple, merges into a grander space. And the truth, our truth, how we see it, how we resonate with it, is revealed. That is healthy. So this is the role that health plays in our consciousness, in our evolution, in our life, in our well-being. So let's take a moment, and we want to end our satsang as we often do, by taking a moment to close our eyes, wherever you are. If you're on a bicycle, if you're walking, just stop for a moment. Even if you can do this standing, or sit down in the grass, sit up in your bed or a chair, and concentrate at the point between the eyebrows. It is here that the sacred mystic traditions recognize that there are two channels that culminate at that point, that single eye, the tip of the pyramid, where sun and moon are no longer separate, where sun and moon are no longer different. That point is the ocean of oneness. It is the silence. It is the peace that is so healthy, that we all deserve in our life. That is that peace is our natural birthright. Be still. Continue to be still. Visualize a light now, a flame of white light with golden sparkles in your chest, in your heart. That light is the self. That light is expanding now within us. It creates an illumination from the inside out. And naturally, we feel some joy emanating from that light. We feel positive because we recognize we are the light. The light is real. We see the light around us, our aura. We share that light with others. By seeing the good in others, by serving and helping others. And we see the light in Divine Mother, in nature, in all her creatures, in the rivers, in the mountains, in the birds, in all living things. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace. Namaste, and blessings to all of you. Thank you. Share the positive media with all. And see you soon.